No one expected the eviction notice to be wrong. And no one imagined the person receiving it had once built everything around them. This story promises a shocking twist that will completely change how power, ownership, and respect collide. Marcus Hale stood on his front porch, holding a document that didn't make sense. The paper was official, stamped, and cold in its wording. It claimed his family had violated HOA rules and must vacate the property within days. For a moment, he simply stared at it, not in anger, not in fear, but in disbelief. This wasn't just any house. It was part of a neighborhood he knew better than anyone else. Every street, every corner, every structure had a story, and he was part of its beginning. Inside, his wife and children continued their day, unaware that something had just shifted. Marcus folded the notice carefully and walked inside, his expression calm but distant. He didn't explain everything yet. He didn't need to, because something about this situation felt unfinished. Later that afternoon, a vehicle pulled up outside. The HOA representative stepped out with confidence, walking toward the house as if everything was already decided. Marcus opened the door before she could knock, and when their eyes met, neither of them realized they were standing at the start of a moment that would change everything. The woman didn't introduce herself with warmth. Her tone was firm, practiced, and filled with authority. She spoke as if the situation was already resolved, as if Marcus had no place to question it. "This is a formal notice," she said, holding a clipboard. "Your property is in violation. You need to comply." Marcus listened quietly. His calmness unsettled her more than resistance would have. "I see," he replied. "And who approved this?" She straightened slightly. "The HOA board." Marcus nodded, glancing at the paper once more. The details were specific, but something about them felt disconnected from reality. Behind him, his wife stepped closer, concern in her eyes. The tension at the door was impossible to ignore now. "This is our home," she said softly. The woman barely acknowledged her. "That may be," she responded, "but the rules apply to everyone." Marcus finally stepped forward, his voice still steady. "And those rules," he asked, "who created them?" The woman didn't hesitate. "The community did." That answer lingered for a moment, because Marcus knew something she didn't. This community didn't exist without him, and the deeper this conversation went, the closer she was getting to a truth that would change everything. Marcus didn't argue at the door. He simply accepted the notice and closed it gently. But inside, something had already shifted. Not anger. Not frustration, clarity. That evening, he sat at the dining table, pulling out old documents he hadn't touched in years. Maps. Contracts. Original development plans. His wife watched quietly as he spread everything out. "You knew this might happen someday?" she asked. Marcus paused, then shook his head. "No," he said. "But I knew people would forget." The next morning, he made a call, then another. Within hours, he had everything he needed. When Marcus returned to the HOA office later that day, the atmosphere felt different. Organized. Controlled. Confident, just like the woman from yesterday. She was there again, seated at the table with other board members. This time, she looked prepared, but Marcus was more prepared. He placed a single folder on the table. "I think we should review this together," he said calmly. They opened it. At first, their expressions didn't change, then slowly they did, because what they were looking at wasn't just paperwork, it was the beginning of the neighborhood itself, and Marcus's name was on every page. The room fell into a silence that felt heavier than any argument. One board member leaned closer, flipping through the documents again as if hoping something would change, but it didn't. Every map, every signature, every approval. Marcus Hale, the same man they had just tried to remove. This doesn't make sense," one of them said quietly. Marcus remained calm. "It does," he replied. "You just weren't there when it started." The woman from before finally spoke again, but her voice had changed. "It wasn't as certain anymore." "You're saying you were involved in the development?" Marcus met her gaze. "Not involved," he said. "Responsible." The word settled across the table. Because it meant something more than ownership, it meant origin. Years ago, before the HOA existed, before the rules were written, before the houses were even built, Marcus had designed it all. The layout. The infrastructure. The foundation of the entire neighborhood, and now, they were trying to remove him from it. The realization spread slowly, and with it, uncertainty, because everything they thought they controlled suddenly felt much smaller. The tone of the meeting shifted completely after that. The authority that once filled the room was replaced with hesitation. No one rushed to speak, because no one wanted to be wrong again. Marcus didn't push. He didn't need to. The truth was already there, sitting on the table between them. One board member cleared his throat. Why didn't we know about this? Marcus gave a small, thoughtful pause. Because time moves on, he said. And people forget who built the foundation they stand on. The woman in the pink suit looked down at the documents again, her earlier confidence now replaced with something quieter. Reflection, this changes things, she admitted. Marcus nodded. It should. Because this wasn't just about a house anymore, it was about respect, respect for history, respect for ownership, and respect for the people who came before. The eviction notice suddenly felt misplaced, small, even, but the consequences of sending it, those were still unfolding, and everyone in that room could feel it. By the next meeting, everything had changed. The same room, the same people, but a completely different atmosphere. This time, Marcus wasn't being questioned, he was being heard. The HOA board had reviewed everything carefully. Legal teams had confirmed it. Historical records backed it up. There was no mistake. Marcus Hale wasn't just a resident, he was the reason the neighborhood existed. We'd like to resolve this properly, one member said. Marcus listened, no tension. No pressure, just clarity. The eviction notice was formally withdrawn. An apology followed, not forced, but genuine. The woman who had first approached him stood up slowly. I misjudged the situation, she said. Marcus nodded, accepting it without pride, because this was never about proving someone wrong, it was about setting something right. Outside, the neighborhood looked exactly the same, but inside that room, something had shifted. Understanding had replaced assumption, and respect had replaced authority. In the days that followed, life returned to normal, but not in the same way it had been before. Something had changed. Neighbors who once walked past Marcus without noticing now greeted him with quiet respect. The HOA operated differently, more aware, more careful, not because they had to, but because they understood. Marcus stood on his porch one evening, watching the sun settle over the streets he had once imagined from nothing. Every house, every road, all of it had started as an idea, and now, it was a community. His family stepped outside, joining him in the calm evening air. No tension. No uncertainty, just peace, because the truth had come forward, and it had changed everything. Not with force, but with clarity, and that clarity reminded everyone of something important. Power isn't just about control, it's about knowing where it truly comes from, and that was the final twist in this unbelievable HOA story. If you love the drama, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment sharing your thoughts. It really helps this channel grow.